Welcome to day 11 of 100 Days of Nice. This one I am still processing, but I will do my best to verbally communicate my day yesterday. I found myself in the emergency room with my son the night before. He was having a lot of difficulty breathing, coughing, fever, um, and then the typical cold symptoms. If it weren't for the difficulty breathing piece, we probably would have been like, oh, he's getting a cold and he's teething. But because of that, we were concerned. We tried to make an appointment. The doctors were packed, so we had to go to the emergency room. We go to the emergency room and they asked for my ID, but they wouldn't touch it. So that was like the first kind of thing that caught my attention, that I was kind of taken aback, and I was like, oh, they're doing things differently. And then immediately after, I was given a mask for my son. Now, I completely understand that these are preventative and necessary measures, and I respect them. I was also very aware of the emotional impact and effect that they had, given that these are new experiences. So they tend to, it's not something that I'm accustomed to. So when it happens, it's like, oh, what was that about? Why is this happening? Oh, this might be something real soon. It just kind of put me on alert. I wasn't even in the room for 5 minutes, and I heard the term coronavirus multiple times from other patients, from other providers, from people walking down the halls or in other rooms. So I'm not sure what role they had, but the word was just floating around. So that word, because there's so many unknowns about it, plus a significant amount of media coverage, um, the word in itself, t- I've noticed, tends to trigger a sense of anxiety. So I needed to practice my nice, like crazy yesterday. I was, so the nurturing self-talk that I assigned for myself was, I live in the now. I ground myself in the moment with gratitude, and I will keep all of my energy right here with my baby. I found myself, so they ran a multitude of tests and they told me it would be about an hour before I got the results back. So that's a long time to be sitting in a room waiting to find out, like, oh my gosh, what is this about? And hearing conversations in the hallways and things like that. So I really, really, really needed to practice this nurturing self-talk. The way that I did so was through a lot of repetition. I also did some meditation. I did some prayer. That wasn't enough after a certain amount of time. I was like, okay, I need to step this up a notch. So then I sent out a group text to my inner circle, and then through my support system, I was able to receive collective prayer, uplifting words, and just like support, and just that knowing that I wasn't alone and that there was a small network of people lifting us up in prayer and visualizing desired outcomes with me was so, 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 so helpful. The way that I was grounding myself in the moment with gratitude was, my son was laying on my chest, so I was feeling the heat of his skin on my shoulders. I was feeling the weight of his head on my chest. I was feeling his breath on my skin. I was listening to his breathing. I could kind of um, feel with my hand on his back, like, his breath, and at different points, like his heartbeat, and just really focusing on him, on touching his soft skin, smelling his hair, just really using all of my senses to soak up the moment, and that allowed me to do it with gratitude in the now. I felt so privileged to be able to be there and only be stressed about that, because there are other points in my life when my children have been sick, and I wasn't only stressed about that, but I was stressed about the possibility of losing my job. Or I was stressed about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about work? Or stressed about not getting paid because I didn't have any sick days or something along those lines. So in that moment, I was able to find gratitude for, wow, I'm so glad that I'm able to be here and just focus on him and just give him all of my attention. And that's part of what inspired that last piece. I will keep all of my energy right here with my baby, because I noticed when I got myself lost in the worst case scenarios of the future, I wasn't giving him my attention in the right now when he needed me the most in that moment. I was getting lost in some kind of alternate reality that wasn't even real, that I don't even want to live in. So let me just come back to the right now and be here for my baby and cuddle with him and soothe him and yeah, nurture him and support him when he needs me the most. He needs me grounded, he needs me centered, he needs me with a clear mind because he needs me to be his number one advocate. And I'm not going to be able to do that successfully if I'm dealing with the emotional repercussions of some worst case scenario future. So bring your little butt back to the right now and be here with him. And just that was really helpful in redirecting my attention multiple times, multiple times, but I did it redirecting my attention back to the now. So that is what I'm complimenting myself for. I did a wonderful job redirecting myself with compassion over and over and over and over to the right now. I'm also impressed with how I was able to curve the what ifs, curve the worst case scenarios, and just the anxiety thriving in the environment of the hospital. Like, people were legit freaking out. And I mean, hello, it's an emergency room. Like, people are in a state of crisis. And when we're in a state of crisis, that automatically comes with anxiety and fear. So I had to do of work to like kind of build a shield around myself and my son so that we could be calm, cool, collected, clear minded, despite being in a very chaotic environment. The emotional intelligence. Anxiety was definitely a part of the emotional map yesterday, and what I learned from it is that it was feeding off of the worst case scenarios of the future that I was imagining or considering or envisioning. So what I learned from it is that it's important for me to visit multiple potential futures so I could prepare myself more adequately in the now. When we imagine the worst case scenarios, it doesn't have to be bad. It's not about not preparing for that possibility, but expanding the possibilities. So being able to imagine that worst case scenario so you could prepare for it, but also imagine the best case scenario so that you could prepare for that. And imagine like all the grays in between so that you can consider those as well. But when we just imagine that one worst case scenario and we kind of stay there, that's where the fear and the anxiety thrives. So I was able to visit and imagine multiple potential futures so that I can bring myself back to the right now and figure out, okay, what questions do I need to ask? What is it that I need to do? How is it that I need to prepare? How is it that I want to set up my life in the right now so that I'm moving toward a future that I actually desire? The fear of the unknown was another emotion that was very present for me yesterday. And what I learned from that is that I need to focus on what I know and inform myself as best as I can. So I must admit that before yesterday, I had not done any official type of research on the virus. I hadn't looked up the prevalence rates, the death rates, the risk, the how I had seen a map as far as globally how where it was more present, but I didn't really look much at the numbers, at the percentages, at the symptoms, at the different categories, and this stage of the life of the virus, all of those other things. Because it kept on coming to my attention, and then when I did look, I was like, oh crap, some of these symptoms could fit. Then I was like, okay, you know what? Inform yourself as best as you can, educate yourself. What is this really about? When we don't educate ourselves, when we're not sure, when we're not well informed, then we are just going off of and operating from a state of fear, not from evidence, not from any knowledge, not from any shared experiences. So I intentionally did that. And then another way that I practiced that was through assertive communication. They were just coming in and out, swabbing this, swabbing that, ordering this test, ordering that test. Oh my gosh, they ended up taking an x-ray as well. And because he- he's young, they needed to put him in like this acrylic machine like holder thing to like keep his arms up when they were trying to take the x-ray, and he was just screaming and terrified, and just seeing him like in this contraption with his arms up and just tied up, it was heartbreaking to watch, and it was very stressful for both of us, and I'm sure so much more for him. So all of that was happening. I wasn't getting any information about why they were doing that, what they were suspecting, what the working theory or hypothesis was, or any of that. So then, when the fear of the unknown was really being activated, I was like, okay, I'm scared of the unknown. Guess what? I know how to figure stuff out. So I practiced my internet researching skills and knowing how to find credible sources, finding multiple sources that are confirming the same piece of information, that are based in data and have some kind of scientific backing to them, not just kind of clickbait type of stuff. And also like asking questions. And it's unfortunate that in that type of setting, the patient needs to be the one that is interviewing the provider and having to ask the provider to explain themselves. But I mean, the reality of the situation is they're dealing with multiple people at the same time. They're just trying to hurry up and, check their boxes and do their jobs and move over to the next room. So a lot of times, we need to be the ones that stop them in their tracks and be like, hey, hold on. What was that for? What test are you running? What do you think is going on here? What's your assessment so far? What are you hypothesizing? What are you thinking? And kind of snapping them out of it, and asking them and prompting them to break things down. So luckily, once I did that, I did have, there were some short answers, but I'm an advocate of assertive communication. So I asked for elaboration, I asked for clarity, I then had more questions. So then, once they knew that I'm actually asking you questions because I'm seeking to understand, then they, like she literally sat down and was like, oh, okay, we're about to have a conversation. So that was something that I want to encourage you all to do if you find yourself working with medical professionals. Sometimes they're just in that go, go, go. It is so important that we're our number one advocates. Also, the number one advocates for our children. And I knew that I needed to be grounded and calm and centered and still have access to my ability to, practice effective social skills and all of those things so I could advocate for him in the way that he deserves to be advocated for. So, whenever the fear of the unknown comes up, I learned and was reminded, find out, ask questions, do research, find credible sources, and know what you can, and then focus on the information that's known and allow that to have credibility and weight, more than these hypothetical, alternate type of realities that don't exist unless, yeah, that don't exist in the now. So those were my takeaways yesterday. I would like to have communicated this a little bit more clearly, but yeah, I'm still kind of processing this all because, as I'm sure many of you know, there have been also other changes and updates that have been made. Oh, but quick, my son is okay. He tested negative for all of the tests that were run. Um, so that was good in a way because it's like, oh, okay, he doesn't have any of all of these things that they were suspecting. But then, what we were told by the end were there are multiple viruses that have these symptoms that we do not have tests for, and it could be any one of those. So just keep an eye on it. Our bodies heal themselves from viruses, so stay hydrated. And we were given some medication to keep the fever down. But today is the next day. He's doing much better. He still has a little bit of a cough, but the fever has broken. His energy is coming back. His appetite is getting there. Not quite there yet, but yeah, we're doing better. And yeah, that was my day 11. I hope I communicated some of my points effectively and there was something of value that you found here. But I'm gonna wrap this up. I'll see you all soon.